Hey, Mike, you ready for the show?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let me finish a little touch up on this.
What are you doing, Mike?
Well, tonight we're going to have our guest is a comics, kind of a comic expert. Has his own
Yeah.
store and is a big, the celebration of comics. I thought I might do my own comics, so I put through this together at the last minute. It's and
Okay.
it's a whole new idea. I think it's going to be fresh. It'd be my own universe. It's called Stop Hammer Time. And I don't know if you can. This is totally original. These are the Revengers, and this is Thorn, and this is Captain Delexia, and this is and they have a whole. There's a whole cast of them, but the Stop Hammer Time is basically the.
Oh, okay.
I thought I can get it published, and actually,
Well, Matt has
actually,
published a comic before, but I'm
we can get together.
um
We can write this up.
okay.
I got a guy named Milk. He's a character, and we got another guy. It's is I don't know. Is this the? I think we need to start the show.
Let's just start the show. It's a Something About Something podcast with your host, Mr. Mike Schilling.
And my good friend and compadre, Mr. Ricky Pope. That was just something I threw at the last minute. Actually, the reality is, my son actually did this when he was 8, and
That's awesome that you kept it.
yeah, he gave it to me. It was like a birthday thing, and actually,
That's
no,
funny.
it was my daughter. Actually, she did
Oh, daughter.
that, and when she was, and my son, he contributed. I think he was like 7 at the time. You're not going to be able to see it, but he thought he was funny. See this little guy right there? He added
Yeah.
that to it, so he thought that would be cute. But anyway, yeah. So
That's funny.
we have a guest tonight.
We
That's
do,
awesome, right?
Matthew Price.
Yeah.
He is
Yeah.
he's a comic store owner. We're excited to have him on the
Yeah.
show, but we've
Yeah.
got a few things to do before we bring Matthew on the screen. So,
Yeah.
by the way, if you're out there watching, let us know where you're watching from. We definitely want to hear from you guys.
Awesome. You did hear the kids, didn't you?
I did hear the kids.
Okay, good.
And-
Kids get upset when
Hey, Kyle Roberts. Kyle Roberts has been a guest on the show
awesome.
before.
Yes, he has. Yes.
All right. Good to have you,
Man.
Kyle. It's going to be a good show. I think it's going to
gonna
be a good
be. I
show.
think
It's
so,
going to be a
too.
good show tonight.
Well, when somebody else gets to talk on the show instead of us, usually the viewers get more bang for the buck.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. It,
But
it's probably better
yeah,
that way.
I think so too.
So, we want to do some stupid news.
yeah,
first.
we can do that. Let's do some stupid news here.
All right, let's do it. It's the stupid news with your host, Mr. Mike Schilling.
Yeah, I've been doing some past week. I've been looking up some news that we may have missed over, and we've had some news this past week. A little bit of the Force, if you know what I'm talking about. Apparently, in a Newton County man had to spend the night in jail and is now facing charges after his Star Wars hobby may have turned him to the dark side.
Wait, what? He's in jail because
in
of
jail.
Star Wars.
Exactly.
It's Star Wars' fault.
It is. It's Justin Marling, and let's see here. Justin Marling is Justin Marling right here. Don't ask me why he's black and blue. I don't know. There's nothing in the story that covers why he looks like he's gotten a fight with an Ewok, but apparently he's a stormtrooper fandom created.
Okay.
Apparently on Sunday in a small town of Newborn. About 20 miles of who cares. Marling was walking down the Pitts Chapel Road in a full armor and a plastic gun. So,
Dressed as a stormtrooper.
yeah, with a plastic gun. Yeah, let's take a look at that, and we'll just show a little bit to the audience here. This is him inside the school. Look, no, it's a post
Nice.
office. That goes over
He's
well.
in the post office with a gun. Yeah.
gun.
I'm thinking that was not a bright choice.
I don't think so. I don't think he. I think he didn't chose wisdom, but yeah.
You
So
have chosen poorly.
poorly, man. So anyway,
I have a feeling that this whole business isn't over yet.
no, it's not. So he says that he did it to raise awareness for a charitable cause. It's Star Wars
Okay.
Force for Change, and I don't know if you've heard of that
Force for
before.
Change. Okay.
Yeah. The website mission says to inspire people to have a positive impact on the world. Well, he decided to wear it in public and to do that thing, and he
And the
said he
police
was doing
gave
it
him
for,
an impact.
yeah, apparently, exactly. He said when you dressed when you dressed a little out of this world, though, it draws attention. And apparently, yes, Jasper County Sheriff's Department stopped him. He said, I didn't realize, Marling said, that I was kind of in a shock. He said, according to the incident report, when deputies pulled up, Marling had two hands on what they thought was a real weapon.
Oh, no.
They told him to put the weapon down, but Marling turned away and continued walking. Big mistake. Deputies gave a second command, and it was at that point Marling put the gun down and took a step back. He said, I was scared because their guns are real and mine wasn't.
You think?
He was arrested for reckless conduct and wearing a mask. Georgia law says that that's not allowed unless it's for a holiday function. Marling admits this is not the first time law enforcement has intervened. Apparently in Fort Drum, military police arrested him, but they didn't charge him with anything. When
Nice.
when asked if his days as a member of the Imperial Army were over, he replied, "No, absolutely not." So anyway,
That's
yeah.
funny.
who we got there? Hey, that's right. That was from that was from our Florida Man correspondent, Todd VC. Sorry about that.
Good to have you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks for sharing that. We always look forward to good, stupid news.
This one is interesting. This is also came from our Florida correspondent. This was back in 2017, but it was worth pulling back out for the stupid news. Very interesting. An Alberta man showed remarkable dedication to keeping his tidy lawn on that Friday. Continuing with his mowing as a large tornado swirled on the horizon.
He kept mowing?
Yes, this picture right here. This is actually a real picture here. This is not Photoshop. This is actually from the Canadian newspapers. Yes. Seems like a winner to me.
That's crazy.
That is nuts. He said his name is Tennis Weasel. Told CTTV News channel on Sunday that he needed to get his grass cut ahead of a busy weekend, chauffeuring his kid and sporting events. His wife, Selena, has now widely shared this photo across social media. They're originally from South Africa, and they've never seen a tornado before. He said, I was watching it all the time to see what was going on. He said, I didn't think it was that close. Apparently, the Environment Canada issued a warning for parts of Canhill County on Friday due to an eyewitness report of a tornado near Three Hills. Apparently,
you would think he was from Oklahoma.
You would think so. So basically, he said, my daughter came out and said, Dad, you need to come in. And she went inside and waked up his wife, and then his wife came out to take some pictures. And apparently, I guess, yeah, he said one thing, Thanos Wells, he said that he finished cutting the grass before heading inside, adding that the lawn looks great. And basically, he getting blown away. So basically he did pretty good there. So
Nice.
Not too bad, not too shabby.
What else do we have?
Well, this is from Florida. I hate to say, but yes, it's Florida man. Florida man. This, give me a minute here, because this is a Florida man. I can see Todd. I can see Todd riding around in this. But anyway, a Florida man rode his airboat through the streets of his neighborhood.
What? How did he ride? Was it flooded?
No, actually it wasn't. It was not flooded.
Okay. He rode his airboat down the street.
Apparently, it was on
How is
New
that
Year's.
even possible?
Apparently, it was on New Year's Eve. He threatened to kill deputies as they were taking him into custody, according to the Brevard County Sheriff's Department. Deputies said that they were called to the street about 11:30 p.m. Thursday and saw the man later identified as Joseph Porosky, 40, riding an airboat on the streets before pulling into the yard.
Oh my goodness.
A public information officer said Porosky knocked over trash cans and was shooting off fireworks during the incident.
Went all out. That's a hold my beer kind of day right there.
As deputies were on the scene, they said Porosky turned the airboat around and started to rev up the engine and cause a disturbance and mocked law enforcement. Porosky was placed under arrest, of course, and he's
Oh my goodness.
apparently right now he's still up for trial. So anyway, that was a Florida Man report right there. So pretty much that's stupid news.
Crazy. This has been the Stupid News with your host, Mr. Mike Schilling.
Anyway, did I miss Matthew Price? No, we're saving the best for last.
Leslie. We'll have him up here in just a few moments.
Yes, we will.
Now, do we have some headlines?
There's a few headlines. There's a few headlines.
Usually I read the headlines after you
Yeah.
bring them up, but I lost my glasses and this is my backup pair. So everything in the world is slightly blurry. I'm not sure I can read them tonight.
I may need to read them tonight, and that's fine. This first one I really like. It says sewer was blocked by a large poo.
Wait, that's not the kind of poo. Nice. That was lovely. Way to go, Scotland.
Yes. This one, breaking news: Queen prepares for state visit to Miami. Oh, that's not. Sorry, that's not.
I don't think that's a real. I don't think that's real. Nice.
Todd, he's coming after you. Okay, now, midget Sue Grocer cites belittling remarks.
Oh. Wah, wah.
Man in boxer leads police on brief chase.
Oh. Boxer briefs.
There we go.
Yep.
This one right here, Weight Watchers demonstrator shoplifts cupcakes.
Nice.
And more sad news from the music industry. Keanu West is found alive in his apartment earlier today. I thought that was odd.
I don't think that's a real headline either.
You don't think so? I don't
think
know
that's
about
real.
that. Looks
I
pretty
think it's
good.
true. I think it's accurate. I just don't think
Accurate.
that's a real
Okay,
headline.
yeah, Hispanics ace Spanish test.
Imagine
Imagine that. That's amazing. That's good news there. Yes. And
Oh
let's
my
see
goodness.
here. Man arrested after cop spot suspiciously small package in his undies.
Oh,
I don't know
that's
why I did that.
wrong.
That's
That's
wrong,
just
I know.
wrong.
And by the way, fish needs water, feds say.
Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. Yes, yes.
An army vehicle disappears. An Australian army vehicle worth $74,000 has gone missing after being painted with camouflage.
Sergeant, where's the car? We painted it and we can't find it now.
Found it. That's right. That's why you can never find those invisible planes in the 80s.
Exactly.
Stealth bomber. And for the last one, big rig carrying fruit crashes on 210 freeway, creates jam.
Oh, nice.
And that's stupid news headlines.
All right. Well, hey,
Now,
I've got something special. Mike is frightened. So, okay, guys, we have been talking about a new logo for the Something About Something show for some time. Mike and I have. We haven't really included you guys in it, but I wanted to unveil the creation that we have. Okay, so Mike has always had a fascination by this one particular logo, and I'm going to bring that logo up on the screen. I'm going to have to screen share it because I didn't upload it. So I'm going to screen share this.
Well, the nice
Mike
thing about
has
it,
Mike has loved this logo for a long, long time, right, Mike?
yeah. Now to let you know, one of our viewers, Jason Hamilton, he actually took the original that I gave him and he created this here. And so it looks really good. The problem we ran into and we were concerned about was copyright issues.
Right.
So Ricky said, well, let me take a look at it. So,
And I said, let me play around with it. Let me make some changes. I think I can make enough changes that it can be ours. And I think I've done that. And Mike, I'm just going to, so are you willing to use my new logo? Are you willing to commit to use my new logo?
I guess all the things that I've done in the past to get you all. Yes, we'll do it. Yes.
Okay. Are you ready to see it?
Okay.
Are you ready to see the new logo?
I'm ready to see it.
Are you sure?
Not really, but go ahead. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Oh, okay. Well, that's definitely not going to be copyrighted. I can tell you that right now.
What?
That is.
So what do you think? What do you think?
I think it works. I think it works. Now I need a spot of tea. That's awesome. I like that.
I spent some time redrawing absolutely everything in the photo. So it is absolutely all ours. And there you go, Mike. There is your new logo for Something About Something.
Wow.
We can start using that whenever you're ready.
Well, I won't shave now, so that's good. I'll keep it nice and.
Todd Vesey says, "Sold. I'll take 2."
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so that was my bit of fun.
Well, actually, that was actually great. I really I was really surprised. At first I was concerned you would do like one of the Mike Photoshops, and I'm going, oh man. So, but anyway, it was good. That was really good. Yeah, I like it a lot. I like it a lot. So we
Todd
need
Vesey
t-shirts.
says he needs t-shirts.
Yeah, I think great. I was thinking about doing an ad for Todd, for his,
For his lawn mowing business.
Yeah, so but we'll save that for later. I want to surprise Todd. I'll get his permission first, but
that would be great. Well,
That'd be
I think it's time we bring our guest on.
Oh,
I think
heck yeah.
we've made the crowd wait long enough.
I think so. Yeah.
We have a special guest, Mr. Matthew Price, the owner operator of Speeding Bullet Comics. So let's add him to the stream.
Hello.
Hey, Matt.
How's it going?
Good.
Going
How are you doing
fantastic.
tonight?
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Now, real quick, I was. This is actually the first time me and Matthew actually face to face or via web to web, whatever. But we chatted on Facebook, and I was asking him questions about. I had this wild hair about, hey, I want to open up a comic book store, geek stuff, and all this stuff. And we had a good conversation, texting one another. By the time we got done with the conversation, I realized that's too much work, and it never happened. So.
Well, it's, there's a lot to it, but it's a lot of fun.
You have to have real passion for it. So, yes.
So I remember back in the day, and Matt and I have talked about this some. Now, you actually worked at a comic book shop when you were a teenager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of them was the one that I own now. So
yeah. And I actually used to frequent that comic book shop back in the day. So what made you decide to go from working in a comic book shop in your teens to deciding this is the business I want to be in?
Well, I mean, I wasn't that much out of my teens, honestly, when we started, when my wife and I bought out the assets of the store and took it over. But it's just something that's kind of important to both of us. Literacy is very important to both of us. The community. and that was something that just was appealed to both of us. It's a business, but it's more of it's in a lot of ways more of a community. We're trying to make money, but that's not the main goal, really. I mean, one thing that I talk about a lot of times when I'm talking about the store is there's been studies that show if you have just maybe 3, 4, 5 pieces of reading material in a child's household, the odds of that child having a more successful college career or career beyond that go way up. So if we can have free comic book day, we can put 5 comics in a kid's hand that day. I mean, we're just hopefully making, the odds of that kid's success go up just that much more. So obviously free comic day and a lot of things didn't happen exactly as planned due to COVID, but we do a lot of events with schools. We do a lot of events with libraries. We do try to do a lot of things to connect with kids. And if you're an adult, hopefully this is a place where you can step out of your day for a short amount of time, escape to another world, get your comics and put away the worries of the day for however long it is. And just enjoy your adventures with Batman or Mickey Mouse or whoever it is you like to read about. So
I'm curious, how did you guys handle with the pandemic? You're conducting business, social distancing.
Yeah.
I mean, did you have any special try to use like online or?
Well, we did we have a website that we've used kind of for updates for a long time, but we kind of rolled out a more of a e-commerce site at sbcomics.com. And so we did e-commerce through that, where you can just go and buy graphic novels and things like that. And we have done some more mail order, and we are still mailing some comics to customers who are just because of the pandemic, they don't maybe want to get out as much, that sort of thing. And then in store, I mean, we had to be closed for a while due to some of the rulings that came out in March when people were just shut down. Yeah. And there was some weirdness when we couldn't get comics for several weeks because the distributors shut down. So there were a lot of strange things that happened in the last year. But we, Norman has been kind of progressive as far as asking for mask wearing pretty early and social distancing and things. So we've required masks since we were allowed to open back up, I believe. And we've got some 6-foot spacing taped out on the floor, and we've got, limited customer count and things like that. And we've, been able to kind of make it through it. I don't think it's an ideal situation or what anybody would have necessarily picked, but we've been able to make adjustments to what we do to continue to serve the community, which is what we're all about.
That's awesome.
Very
I was
cool.
curious because I know a lot of small businesses are, was struggling, especially with type of service they had. So it's good to see that you're able to balance that.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly not going to do maybe the numbers we would in having a record year or anything. We're gonna be down, but we're able to stay alive, and I kind of think that's the goal right now is just stay alive till all this gets back to normal, and then do what you can. So.
I was hearing earlier we were talking, and you said that you were has different Comic-Cons that you were part of. SoonerCon was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like SoonerCon a lot. It's a fun, very social show. They've invited me to be a panelist several times, which is very kind of them. So, one thing that I had mentioned that I've done some comics. I've written some comics in the past, and I have one that I worked on with Ben Soto featuring my character, The Grave. And hopefully, if SoonerCon or some other conventions get going again, we can get that printed and get that out to people. We haven't. That's been another thing that obviously people have not been able to do cons whatsoever, which I think makes having a comic book store be able to stay open even more important because you have even less points of contact, I guess, with that community than you ordinarily would.
Yeah.
Todd VC has an interesting question here. Would a Stormtrooper or Darth Vader helmet qualify as a mask for your store?
Boy, I don't know. Technically, you probably should wear a mask under the mask. I mean, you can wear that over it if you want to, but you should probably wear the official nose and mouth covering. And then if you want to wear a motorcycle helmet or a Darth Vader or whatever on top of that, do what makes you feel good.
Well, so back in the day when I actually frequented that particular store, it was called the Archives. Now, when you purchased it, now you've changed the name to Speeding Bullet. Why did you decide to change the name, and why did you you'd go with that name.
Okay, so there was actually an interim in between there. It was the archives when I worked here, and then a guy named Lenny Brumley in Pauls Valley bought it in between there, and it was called Millennium Books.
Okay.
And it was Millennium Books for about a year, and then we bought it from him. And so we just basically, the archives was part of a different chain, but it had already changed the name since then. We couldn't very well go back to calling it that, especially since we weren't part of that chain. And Millennium, I mean, Lenny kind of picked that out because it had Lenny in the middle of it. So, I mean, it was very much picked out because of his name. And so it would have seemed kind of weird, I thought, to keep it as well. So we went through a list of a bunch of different names and tried to come up with something that would indicate, that we like superheroes, but you don't, but also that we like, we'll do our best to provide you with fast service. I mean, we tried to come up with something that was positive. I didn't think so much about the bullet element of it, although technically speaking, I guess being in Oklahoma, it's not like people are that worried about guns. But we did have somebody call about ammunition a couple weeks ago. It happens every once in a great while.
Yeah.
We'll call it actual bullets, which we do not. But for the most part, I think it's worked pretty well as a name. We were obviously playing off the Superman faster than a speeding bullet, but because DC has trademarked faster than a speeding bullet, we are not faster. We are just the exact speed of a speeding bullet.
That's good.
So
Good call.
Good
Good call.
call. That's a good.
we cannot go any faster, only the exact speed
Oh,
of.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That's covering yourself.
Yeah. So I mean, we just kind of kicked around a bunch of names to see what we liked, and this was the one that kind of stuck with us. My wife and I are both big Superman fans. My wife Annette, who has been the co-owner with me from day one, we both are big Superman fans. We grew up with the Christopher Reeve movies.
Yeah.
Right shortly before we started dating, we were in a class together, and she wrote a paper about one of the Superman movies, and I think she thinks that's why I asked her out, but that's not. I mean, it didn't hurt. But
I was getting ready to say after that you proposed to her, so yeah,
it
Yeah.
certainly
She's
didn't
the
hurt.
one.
she's the one.
Do you want me to take this?
Yeah, hold on. Todd Vesey, Vesey, how has the digital medium of comics affected your business model?
I mean, this isn't a fun answer, but almost none.
Okay.
I mean, some people like them and some people don't. And I think it's probably a decent way to sample them.
Yeah.
And certainly if you're going to get on a plane, it's probably easier than carrying a long box on there or something.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, it's either different audiences or different parts of the same audience. I think some people will. I don't know that many people are like, I like the experience of digital so much that I'm never going to a comic book store again.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're out there. If it gets more people exposed to it, great. But I think a lot of people, or at least probably the people who come in every week or whatever, still like getting that physical format. And it's such a great physical format. I mean, sort of created by accident in the 30s, but it's so. I mean, it's it's portable. It's it fills your field of vision. It's tactile. You've got sort of that creating that panel to panel.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do some of that on a digital screen too, but I just feel like the format is such a great format for conveying entertainment that's why it's continued to survive.
Yeah.
Kyle Roberts says, head to Norman for the exact speed of Speeding Bullet Comics shop.
That's right.
So, I have to ask this question just because
Okay.
we're a nerdy show and we debate a lot of things, and Mike and I don't always agree on everything.
Sure.
We're good friends, but we do not always agree. So I have to ask you, Marvel or DC?
Oh, well, I like all of them. I mean, and probably having a store, it helps to like all of them.
I was going to say he's the
running for
salesman.
president.
He has to.
He's running for
he has
president.
to-
I like Image. I like a lot of stuff from Image. I like a lot of stuff from Aftershock, and Oni Press puts out some great books. Vault is a new publisher that puts out some great books.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great publishers in the market that do great stuff. I mean, at different times, I probably collected more Marvel or more DC, just depending on what books are coming out in that era. I've always been a big Captain America fan, so I like Captain America. That Ed Brubaker run on Captain America is one of the all-time greats. but I also like Superman a lot. So I mean, Batman and Spider-Man consistently sell really well for us. There's always Batman fans. There's always Spider-Man fans. So
Yeah.
I'm glad they're both in the industry, and I hope they both continue to stay healthy.
Let me ask you, Matthew,
Mhm.
with new movies coming out, does comic book movies, when they come out and it hits the mainstream people, does that bring them in the comic book stores, or is there still demarcation between the casual, you know, action hero fan of Marvel or DC movies? Do you see any kind of a surge when people go to see movies like that?
I think the main thing you see is interest in some of the back issues. If they're going to introduce a new villain or something, like,
Okay.
oh, Batrock's going to be in the movie, well, maybe I want to check out the back issues that have Batrock in them.
Gotcha.
I don't. I mean, I think it's been sort of a rising tide over the course of however many years. Like the
Yeah.
general awareness can't really hurt. But then on the flip side of that, if there are 10 superhero shows on CW, do you need to go to the comic book store to buy your 11th
I
superhero
see.
story that you're reading? So I think it probably adds some and it takes some away. But in
see.
the end, as a fan, I'm happy to see well done stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, as you guys probably know, or Ricky knows, um, Sterling Gates, who wrote the Posthuman movie with me, went on to write for the Supergirl TV show and the Flash TV show, and worked on the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover that they did of all those CW shows. So, I mean, he was definitely bringing a comic fan's perspective on creating those shows. So I think it's all probably, in the long run, it's obviously better to have IP that people are interested in than not.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a dollar for dollar translation? I mean, I don't necessarily think so, but I think in the long run, probably a rising tide lifts all boats, and
Yeah.
probably the success of the characters in other media eventually feeds back into comics in some way. Although I don't know that it necessarily is like immediate. Like, oh, the Iron Man movie came out this weekend, and now we're going to sell 100 more Iron Man comics.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a direct correlation as much as that goes. I think the most direct correlation you probably see, well, two things. Sorry, I'm kind of
No,
one is probably
That's all right.
finding those people start looking for back issues of characters if they feel like they're going to be introduced in larger media. And the other thing, if there is more of a one-to-one correlation, like when Watchmen the movie was coming out, there's one Watchmen book, or there was at the time. Now there's some sequels and prequels and stuff. We sold a lot of the Watchmen book leading up to that movie. 300, there was one book. We sold a lot of that book leading up to the movie. Even Sin City, I mean, there's 7 books, I think, but it's a contained thing. I think it's harder when it's something like Iron Man. What's the one book you're going to get because the Iron Man movie's coming out? Have there been,
Yeah.
hundreds? I think
Yeah.
there's more of a direct correlation when there's one book to point people to, where you would see a spike in a specific
Yeah.
item sold. Whereas I think the superhero movie thing in general, like you saw people looking for, because Taskmaster is supposed to be in the new Black Widow movie, more people have been searching out his first appearance and things like
Yeah.
that.
Another question, and I guess this is kind of following what you just said. When you have somebody new to comic books and they're interested and they come in and say, "Hey, you know, I love Superman, or I like Batman," or they use a specific character that they've seen and they like, but they say, I don't know where to start. What kind of recommendation do you give people who, they've seen the cartoons, they've seen the movies, but now they want to dig in to some kind of continuity, a little background of these superheroes?
I mean, it kind of depends on how they want to collect and where they want to start. If you're just coming in and saying, "Hey, I like Superman," I might be like, "Well, do you like the Smallville Superman? Do you like Christopher Reeve?" I mean, kind of get an idea. A lot of times we'll recommend Superman for All Seasons, which is a Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale kind of origin type story. But you might, you could recommend Jeff Johns' Secret Origin. There's a lot of different ones you could go with. Sometimes they'll just want to see, like, what's the closest starting point in the current series that's going on, because maybe they want to collect the monthly comics, and we'll say, well, the latest story arc started on number 24. That's probably a good place to start. So it just kind of depends on how they want to collect and what they're looking to do. If you're wanting to buy monthly comics, we can be like, well, here's the various ones with Batman. Maybe you like the ones where he's more of a detective. Maybe you want the one where he's with Robin. Or if you're like, well, I just want to come in every so often and pick out something that might appeal to me. Okay, well, here's maybe the beginning of the Grant Morrison run, or here's the beginning of something else you might be interested in. So there's different ways we do it, just kind of depending on on what people are interested in. That's part of kind of what we do here is,
Yeah.
talk to people. What is it that you're interested in? How do you want to collect? Because it's all, it's very flexible as far as there's not
Yeah.
one right or wrong way to do it. You can collect
Yeah.
comics any way that makes you happy.
Yeah.
So we try to just express that to people and kind of get an idea how they want to collect and make it work for them.
I just know there's some people, and we did a Doctor Who show last year.
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing about Doctor Who, so we were having discussions, countdown. I said, okay, it's all foreign to me. I would like to, learn more about it. Where should I start?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, so I had all these suggestions. And so that's kind of where I was coming from, as somebody who just had no clue, saying, where do I need to start? And so that's interesting. Hey, Ricky, you want to read that comment from Jason Dupree?
Jason Dupree says, being a Superman fan, what's your thoughts on the upcoming CW show Superman and Lois? Will it add something to the mythos that hasn't been explored?
To be fair, I've not checked on the back. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of the pre-stuff. I'm going to watch the show. I think Superman works well on television. He works well as an episodic character. There's a reason that Smallville was on for so long and why the George Reeves show was so successful. And even why Lois and Clark was popular during the time period was. I think Superman works well as an episodic character, where you probably kind of lean on the Clark Kent character and you bring in Superman for kind of the exciting bits. I don't know if that's what they're going with the show, but that's historically been how Superman is on television. You explore the mystery with Clark and Lois and Jimmy Olsen sometimes, and then Superman kind of comes in to kind of do his Superman thing. So, I mean, I'm sure it'll add things. I mean, every iteration has added things to the mythos. Kryptonite first came from the radio show. Jimmy Olsen first came from the radio show. So every iteration adds something as they expand and adapt the character for new generations. And I think they probably will. I'm glad to see Superman back on television. He works well in the movies, but I think he maybe works even better on television as the type of character that he is, where you can kind of pepper him in,
So one of my favorite things on one of the questions, a couple questions ago, is that you mentioned Batroc the Leaper, who is a villain almost nobody knows about, from France, with a spindly villain mustache. It is the most cliche French villain ever. But pulled him out. I know he's in one of the movies. But you pulled him out, and I'm like, I wonder how many people even know about that. So with that in mind, is there a comic series or a graphic novel, something that's a little more less known, less people aren't familiar with it, less distributed? Is there something that you would recommend? Maybe 2 or 3 things that you would recommend that's like, hey, this is really great, but most people have never heard of it or aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, sure. Well, and first let me say, Batroc the Leaper is kind of my go-to because he was in Captain America 303, which is one of the comics I had. It's a pretty young kid where he and Captain America have a fight. It's a great issue, and I recommend it to people all the time. If you have to be flipping through the back issues, Captain America 303 is a lot of fun. But yes, let me see. I actually kind of made some notes in case there was a question along these lines. There's a book called I think Giga. You might say it Giga, but I think it's Giga. That's coming out by Alex Packnadel and John Lee, and it's sort of a dystopic future where there are all these like mecha, like giant mecha that have like stopped working, and so they're just like all over. And so the people that live there have built up this religion around these giant mecha that are just there, but they're like hollowed out, and sometimes people live in them like buildings. And so anyway, as the story goes on, different mysteries are revealed as far as how they got there and what's happening and what's happening with them in the future. But that's a pretty cool one. That's I think worth checking out right now. Another one, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, is by Al Ewing. You might know from some of his Marvel stuff. And Simone DeMeo is the artist on it. This is about like space scavenger ships who they're like these celestial type beings that they find the dead bodies of and scavenge for material. And so the space captain wants to be the first person to ever find a live one of these, celestial beings, sort of, Galactus type characters that just find their dead bodies way out in space. So that's another one that's recent, that's pretty good and worth a look. I'll throw one more at you. This is not, as far as I know, the Oklahoma town, but a book called Stillwater by Chip Zdarsky and Ramon Perez. There's a small town where no one who lives in the town, if you don't leave the town, you never die. But if you leave the town, you can become human. So this one person who is, he finds his way back to the town. He was, I guess, born there, but left before he ever knew about it. And somehow is invited back there mysteriously and finds out about the town and the mysteries of the town and has to determine, is he going to stay there where potentially he lives forever, but it's a very weird, Twin Peaksy kind of town, or, can he leave? And if he does leave, can he leave safely, or will he then be at the townspeople's mercy? Because they certainly don't want other people to leave and know about their town. So those are three off the top of my, well, not exactly off the top of my head. I did make some notes, but three that I thought of that might be worth mentioning today. So
very cool.
I had a question. Me and Ricky, we've talked about this for quite some time. Comparing the continuity or not the continuity, where you see from Marvel their continuity of their universe, and then DC, who was trying to make their own, and of course it kind of unraveled the way it is now. What's your opinion and what's your thoughts and perspective on what's going on with DC, where you've seen, at least from my end, I've seen some attempts to create their own universe, but then it kind of you're seeing some evolution of getting away from that.
Okay, from just a continuity standpoint.
Well, yeah,
talking about the movies.
The movies, basically, not so much the comics. Should be more.
Like they tried to create a cohesive universe, and now it feels like they're not even going to try anymore.
I mean, funnily enough, that's kind of reflected in the comics, where Marvel was built out more intended to be a discrete continuity at the beginning, whereas DC, I mean, from the very beginning, they're buying up other companies and bringing in other characters. Green Lantern was originally created for an entirely different company, and he got folded in because he sold well. So DC has always been sort of like constantly absorbing and reimagining things, and maybe that's reflected to some degree in their universe. It's not maybe as naturally cohesive. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do a Batman movie. People like Batman. If you're going to do two different Batmans, I think at this point it's not something that frightens people. I think people can figure out, okay, this is the Batman where it's Ben Affleck, and this is the Batman where it's Robert Pattinson. I think probably people underestimate the difficulty of what doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe was. Yeah. If you go back to 2006 and say, here's what they're going to do, people would not believe it. Or they would, if you said, they would take, I think you could bet large amounts of money that people would have said, there's no way what they're doing is going to work, because there's very few examples of it working in the past. I mean, you can say, well, James Bond has a 50-year franchise, but it's basically James Bond. It's not also 7 movies about James Bond's other friend from somewhere else, Good
call. Good call.
Yeah, that's good.
So, what they did is almost unprecedented in cinema, and probably doesn't get enough credit for the degree of difficulty that they put out all these movies and really didn't have any misses. Some did a little better than others, but all of them made money. All of them drew audience. All of them continued to build story. I think it's so I think when you say, why couldn't DC do that? It's like, well, because it's very, very hard. And it's very surprising that even one entity was able to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got a question here for you.
Sure.
Back when I used to frequent comic book shops.
Yeah, which you can, again, you're always invited.
I know. Well, no, I know. I would love to. There are extenuating circumstances.
Sure. I'm just saying.
I've explained on this show.
Invited.
Absolutely. But back when I used to frequent them more often, they were a little different. I remember, like back in the archive days, it was a kind of a dark room with a bunch of long boxes full of comic books, and a shelf with display area for new comic books, and that was pretty much it.
Well, I had one
And
I
then-
went to. I had one I went to that I used to go to, and the old guy who owned the place had a curtain in the back that he said I couldn't go back there. So I don't know what that was all about. They
Now
may
that's
be-
a different kind of
They
bookstore.
could be. They could. It was actually a comic book store, but it was some. I didn't know it was on the other side. I said, he said, son, you can't go back there. I said, okay, it must be too expensive for me. So anyway,
But
was probably
I
it.
was in several different comic book stores, and they were all very similar, very much like that. But nowadays they're a little different. What has changed over the years?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is just that a lot more stuff is in print. You sort of have what's the trade paperback or book format explosion. That I mean, even when we took over the shop in '98, I mean, there were maybe I'd bet there were half a dozen books in print that they had. I mean, there were probably more that were in print, but that they had in stock. Like you can get the new comics, you can get the back issues, but if you're like, I want to read, I don't know, Dark Knight Returns, that one might have been in print, but most of them weren't. Most of it was like, well, you want to read that? Go dig through the back issues.
And hope they're all there,
And hope they're all there. Yeah. So
and you can afford them.
I wouldn't say comics have done a perfect job of keeping the best stuff in print, but they do a much better job than they did 20 years ago.
okay.
I think probably they've tended to put everything in print, so that like, oh, this, rather than say, here's the absolute cream of the crop that we're going to keep in print forever. But I mean, that's, that's a lot of SKUs, and there's a lot of reasons maybe not to do it exactly that way. But the big difference is if you go into a comic book store now, most of them will have some type of book format comic selection.
And it seems like a lot of them have a lot more gifty kind of things than they used to have.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
back
that's
in the day,
probably
it was almost nothing. You couldn't buy little statues, and you couldn't buy little toy things, and at very many.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's probably also true. I would say there's probably also, I mean, depends on when you're talking about, right? But
This
'cause
was
certainly,
this was late '80s, early '90s for me.
like, were you around for the Magic the Gathering explosion?
No,
Okay, so like late '90s, after the comic bust, kind of, a lot of stores stayed in business selling Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
Which,
it's
are you guys familiar with that?
yes,
Yeah.
Okay. And so that kind of opens the door to, are you going to, there's cards. Are you going to carry card games? There are different options that different stores
Yeah.
carry. There's a lot more kind of retro toys. I mean, Funko Pops became a big thing 5 or 6 years ago, and maybe a little longer. And those have been kind of a staple. So there are trendy things that kind of come and go through. And our bread and butter is always reading material, but we do carry, like, we do a good business in reaction figures. I don't know if you're familiar with those, that kind of the classic, they look kind of like the old school Star
okay,
Wars figures to
Yeah.
some degree, but they'll do like they'll do Alien, or they'll do Pee-wee's Playhouse, or they'll have a lot of cool different licenses of old
Yeah.
school stuff.
Okay.
And we do pretty well with them. So there's a lot of, I guess, different tchotchkes and whatnot. And then Dungeons and Dragons came back pretty big with Stranger Things. People got kind of interested in the gaming side of things again as
Yeah.
well. So there's probably always trends, and I think comic book stores are probably a good place to spot trends. Like if you see a comic book store start to carry something and it does well, then like your big box stores will probably have that a year from now, because we're usually kind of chasing the interesting new thing first, and then it ends up kind of spreading.
Yeah, yeah. And another question is, I know a lot of people out there, especially when you're talking about the golden and silver age of comic books, there's a lot of people, collecting them for value. And I've noticed that because of the number of publications of a lot of the comic books that's currently, there's not that same, I guess, that same price tag for collectability. Is that wrong, or do you see some issues that come out that do have value for collectors as far as monetary?
Let me see if I follow your question. I mean, the older stuff is probably generally going to be more collectible just because it's had more time to build a track record. But there are a lot of people who buy now or speculate on new stuff for entertainment reasons, or in the hope that it will go up in price. I mean, it's hard for me to say what's ever going to do that. Sometimes people are like, hey, which comics do you have that are going to go up in value? And I'm like, well, if I knew that, why would I sell them to you? I mean,
Exactly. No, exactly.
I I don't know, buy the stuff you like to read, and then if it gets more expensive, then great, But that is a whole aspect of comics, the collecting of them, and I enjoy collecting them. There's also been people who get into having their comics graded, and then you have the
Oh,
grade.
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never been as big into that because then you can't read it anymore. But it's
Exactly.
encapsulated in plastic. But if I had a Action Comics #1 or something, I'd probably let's go ahead and encapsulate that in plastic. I'm not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
go ahead and read that
Yeah,
every day.
exactly.
But for the newer stuff, I'm more of a reader than a collector, although, like I
Yeah.
said, I do also collect them. And I think people should, again, access and enjoy your comic collecting however
Yeah.
you want to. Enjoy
Yeah.
it in the way you want to enjoy it. So, so I hope that answered the question. I mean, there
Yeah.
are comics that do, I would say comics from the 80s and 90s took a little longer to get as expensive because there were more of them. But now, I mean, for a lot of people, if you're collecting, the Golden Age stuff is maybe way out of your price range.
Yeah.
You're not going to get an Action Comics #1, but maybe you could save up some money and get the first appearance of Deadpool or Cable or a character that you like that came out in the 90s. It's still going to be, some money, but it's not going to be a house.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Now, I know there at the comic book shop, you do kind of event stuff from time to time. You have like special guests come and do signings and things like that. What do you think was like your favorite event that you were able to do there at the comic shop? Was there like one person that you managed to get to show up and you're like, oh, we managed to get this person?
well, I tell you what, I'll mention a few, but the one we had, we weren't really going to do any events this year because of COVID. We're just like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we kind of lucked into Jason David Frank coming here. He has a whole process set up where he's going around to comic shops and trying to help them raise money to get through COVID.
That's the Green Power Ranger?
The Green Power Ranger, yeah. So he set it all up, and we did an event with him, in October, November of 2020, and we had it all socially distanced and spaced out. He has a whole program he uses to make it work safely because he's done several of these, and that was a ton of fun. He is a great guy. If you ever get the chance to chat with him or meet him, he is so fun, and I got to give him a lot of credit for going around the country and helping out comic shops really just on his own dime. He's just doing it because he loves comic book stores. So I just got to really thank Jason David Frank for making that appearance, and it was just a ton of fun. And you saw people coming in here crying because they were meeting their superhero. I mean, I'm a little old to be for it to have been my jam. Like, I knew who he was. I knew who the Power Rangers
My daughter would have been excited if she had been able to go.
There were people just like bawling, and he was super cool with all of them. So again, if you have the chance to meet him and you're a Power Rangers fan, even if you're not a Power Rangers fan, he's a super cool guy. You know what I mean? But the Power Rangers fans were just losing it. They just loved it. And he was super kind to all of them. So major props to him. Another really great, this has been several years ago, but, Jeff Johns came out and visited us several years ago around the time Superman Returns came out. And that was a great event. He was also great with the fans, and it brought a ton of people out. Trying to think of a few others. James Robinson came out when he was co-writing the War of the Supermen story with Sterling Gates. They came out together, and that was a huge event. That it was in the summer, and like our air conditioner could barely keep up. The amount of people that are coming in to see that. So I mean, we've had some really great events. Really appreciative for the people, because obviously coming to Oklahoma is not something that just everybody's going to do. So I'm really appreciative, really, to anybody who's made the time to come out and do an event at our shop. And we like to promote local people as well. We've had them out pretty frequently. So, I don't know. Those were some of the highlights, but yeah, I felt like I should give. If you have a shop and you're watching this and you have the opportunity to be part of Jason David Frank's Power Ranger Protection Program, he calls it, where he comes in and helps you raise money for the shop. That was a very cool thing of him to do.
Nice
deal. Cool.
So, are there any big comic book events coming up that you know of that are like, any big crossovers in the comic books, or any big back in the day? I remember the last few years, there's always been some big summer comic book event that was going to happen. It's some big Avengers event that's going to happen all summer long, or big tie-in event for all the X-Men titles. Are you aware of any big events that are happening this year in DC or Marvel or Image or any of the other?
So most of that stuff will get announced a little bit down the road.
Okay.
The Comics Pro conference is in February, which is a big retailer meeting, and that's when you get some of the first inklings of that. And then March, April, you start to hear a little bit more about it before it starts coming out in June, July. I did, again, make a couple notes of some things I do know about. The X-Men titles are going to have a crossover called Reign of X later this year, so there is going to be an X crossover. The X titles have been doing really well since Jonathan Hickman came on as kind of the overseer, and that's the next big thing with them. From what I understand, I think this has been confirmed, is that Brian Michael Bendis is going to go over to Justice League. He was writing Superman. I think he's now going to go to Justice League. And then there's Boom Studios is doing a book with Keanu Reeves called Berserker, which is like Berserker but with no vowels, BZRKR. So Keanu Reeves is writing a comic with them. I mean, I think he's the co-writer with
Keanu Reeves. He's into everything, right?
And they're really pushing that as maybe their big thing of the year. So those are some of the ones we know about. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier or not, there is a new Magic the Gathering comic coming out in April that's based on the worlds of the card game. So those are some of the ones we know about, but most of the stuff will get announced a little later in the year as we get a little closer to summer. So
very cool.
Cool. Very cool.
Well, let's see. What do you see as the future for comic shops?
I like to think we stay around. It's hard to know. I mean, right now, one of the strange things is that the people who own the big comic companies don't necessarily look at the money from comic shops as a big amount of money. Whereas historically, that hasn't always been true. I mean, it's profitable. You make money. You're almost guaranteed to make money if you do it right. Because they're bought non-returnable. So you, as a publisher, you really shouldn't be able to lose money, although sometimes they do. But right now, AT&T owns one of the big companies and Disney owns the other one. And comic shops probably aren't their first concern. So I would like to say, because people like the comic shop market so much and people like going to the comic book store, that even if AT&T were to pull out of the market, that maybe Image or some other publishers would fill that gap. I hope they don't. I hope that they continue to find comic shops a worthwhile thing to do. Because
I was going to say that's actually something that was being talked about this summer, is that AT&T, Warner Brothers, they were considering stopping the physical publishing of DC Comics.
Well, people say a lot of things that they don't actually know. And I don't think, you know what I mean?
You don't think those reports were real?
That's me.
There's a lot of stuff on the internet that is not necessarily accurate. But, I mean, you've got to be, any number of things could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will also tell you that, like, the people I know who've been comics for the longest, they'll say, people have been telling us comics are dying since the 70s.
Yeah.
And probably if I knew people older than that, they would probably say even longer than that. You know what I mean? I mean, back in the 50s, they were having book burnings and setting comics on fire. Why would you think they would survive that? But they did. They came back because they're just such a good format. I don't think we're in the dire straits of the 50s or the 70s, either one. I think people like the content. Will the price points change? Will the delivery mechanisms change? Probably, but I think comic stores will be around. I think they'll be around. One answer to it is they'll be around as long as enough people who want to buy comics from comic shops come to them. That's typically how it works. I mean, when people ask sometimes about, well, should I buy things digitally or should I order them from this publisher or that, internet retailer or whatever, I tend to say you should buy your comics where you want to continue to be able to buy them.
Yeah.
However that works out for you. I mean, if you're happy with the transaction you're getting, however you're getting it, that's the transaction you should continue to have. Because the one that will go away will be the one that you're not interacting with.
Yeah.
So, If you want there to be comic stores, then buy some stuff from a comic book store. I mean, that, you know, that's, I mean, you can't control everything, and but that's how you vote. You vote with your dollars. So I tend to think they'll be around for a while. You know, who knows what's going to happen 20 years from now? We've been doing this a little over 20 years now, and did I think we were going to go 20 years? I don't know that I thought that far ahead at the time. But I certainly thought there was growth potential then, because back then nothing was in print, you know what I mean? And now almost everything is. So I think there's probably still growth in the market, because I think there's a lot of great stuff that people just haven't been exposed to.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of trying to expose people to material that they enjoy, and being a positive experience for them. So I don't know. I think we got a couple questions, and I don't know that I thought.
We have a comment from Todd VC. Is there a particular time of year comic sales are stronger, and does it correlate with anything in particular?
Comic sales probably tend to be stronger, I would say, in the summer and then around Christmas time. Now, the comics that we sell on Christmas time are probably more the book format stuff. The monthly stuff is usually geared up to be at its biggest in July and August, and that's probably historically because of Comic-Con. People are probably trying to get their big releases out for Comic-Con. So, I mean, because we're in a college town, I'm not sure if that always tracks exactly for us, because sometimes there's just a little less traffic in the summer because college kids are home or whatever. Yeah. But as far as the number of releases, I mean, you probably see stuff July, August, September, as people are trying to get stuff out for the con season or getting stuff out for Comic-Con.
And I love this question from Todd. What's the best part of owning a comic book store?
The thing I like the best is just connecting people with things they enjoy. You know, people aren't coming in here like they're going to the DMV. They're coming in here because they want to enjoy themselves, you know? And so I get to talk to them about something they enjoy, and maybe say, hey, put something in their hand. That's what I like, is just hearing people say, you know what, you recommended that I might like Justice League International, and I love it. I think it's the best thing I've ever read. I mean, that's probably my favorite part. It's just being able to connect people with stuff they enjoy.
What's the demographic that you see age-wise that come in and buy? Is there a specific
it's all over the place now. I mean, I think when we started it was a lot of college kids, and we still have a lot of college students now, but it's all over the place. I mean, we see, and it used to be more male. I would say it's probably much closer to an even split now. And now COVID has made it a little weird. I don't think we see as many kids right now because of COVID. Because I think people just aren't like, let's get the kids out and go hang out at the comic store. People are more, let's go in, grab our stuff and get out, because we don't necessarily want to hang around as long. No. But if you exclude COVID, I mean, we were seeing a lot of kids. We'd see a lot of teenagers. We'd see college students, and we'd see adults. So, I mean, it's really, I don't know exactly if I did the math, but you see people probably from all four quarters, if what they would say, like in the movie business, you see all demographics at different times.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, Mike, you got any other questions for Matt?
I can't think of anything, Ricky.
I don't know that I have any more. I really want to thank you for being on the show. Matt has been a big part of what I've done over the last few years. If you guys notice the posters behind my head, Matt actually was involved in writing both of my short films, and also writing this one back here called Heroes of the Realm. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like I've enjoyed working with Ricky when he directs his films, and then on the ones when he's been in other capacities as well. Kyle William Roberts, who was over here watching a little bit ago, was the director of Heroes of the Realm, and
yep.
I was able to write and co-write some things that he did as well, and and it's been a lot of fun.
Kyle says you're his hero.
Well, thank you, Kyle. No, we worked on. I mean, if you guys are just looking for something to watch, the Post-Human Project, directed by Kyle William Roberts, is available on, I think, Amazon Prime and Tubi and some other online services. And we spent a lot of years of our life putting that together for people to watch. So That's a teen superhero movie filmed here in Oklahoma. If you're looking for entertainment.
Yep, it's pretty
I
good.
just, and I just want to add one more time, and because I can't remember because we talked about it before the show, but the comic that you wrote,
Yeah.
you have the cover, you have the.
Oh yeah, I have. Well, I have a character called the Grave. Whoops, did I get this in there? How do I get this in there? And Kyle actually did a short film featuring the Grave as well. That he's shopped around, I think, different places. I don't know what the current status of it is, but I've done several comics with the Grave. And we have a new one that I've done with Ben Soto that we hope to get out. We kind of been holding off, waiting for conventions to come back a little bit. But I did a story with Ellis Goodson with the Grave that was printed in Okie Comics. That's on the Okie Comics website. And then we did Speeding Bullet Comics from Sense for the Grave story. So I've done a handful of comics, and the Grave is my current sort of comic book project that's been slowed a bit by COVID, but I still hope to get some more comics out with the character in the not too distant future, hopefully.
Very cool. Well, and
did I get
also,
that cover on there good? I'm not sure if I did.
Yep.
Do it again. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Sharp.
That's a Jerry Bennett cover right there. So.
Jerry Bennett. We need to have Jerry on the show sometime. Jerry's a local artist.
Jerry and Hunter Husky were the artists on the first Grave story. They collaborated on it. So,
okay. Well, and you also write a weekly column for the for the Oklahoman.
Yeah, Fridays. Barring incident, I pretty much always turn one in, but sometimes there's a lot of news. But there is a column about the comic industry locally and nationally that runs Oklahoman.com and in the print product generally as well.
Very
so
cool.
I've been doing that for about 20 years now. So that there's a long, one of my longest running gigs, I suppose. I was at the Oklahoman for a long time as the features editor, but I continue to do the column for them nowadays as well. So.
Very cool.
Good deal.
Anything else, Mike?
No, I love it when we have a guest, and you've been an awesome guest.
Yep.
So I appreciate you having you on our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me out. I'll try to keep you guys posted if I'm doing something more newsy in the future that's closer to happening as well. But I'm glad to talk to you about comic retail and how comics are going in the time of COVID, and certainly encourage you, whether you're in Oklahoma or elsewhere, visit your local comic shop if you have a chance, or make an order with them. Let them send you comics if you don't feel like you can get out, if you don't feel like that's safe. I know that those locally owned businesses would appreciate it a great deal during this time.
Yeah. One other thing really quick, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier. Do we know when Free Comic Book Day is going to be this year?
So this year,
it's kind of moving around maybe.
It's almost always the first Saturday in May, but they don't feel like it's going to be safe to do it necessarily then. So right now they're aiming, I think it's August 14th is the day. Okay. They're aiming for August to do Free Comic Book Day. Last year they ended up doing kind of a spread out Free Comic Book Day summer, so they could do a few, which was weird. But I mean, it's just like, what are you going to do? You're in a weird position trying to deal with it. You obviously can't have the kind of crowd you'd ordinarily have. So I'm thinking I think it's August 14th. I actually did mention this in a column recently, but it is definitely in the month of August that they're going to try to do it, unless something happens where they have to postpone it. But that's where they're gearing toward right now. And I think it'll be hopefully pretty good. I mean, hopefully by August where we can at least somewhat get out and around. And if we have to take some kind of precautions to make it safe for people, obviously we'll do that. So
very cool. Maybe we can have you back on for a pre-free comic book day.
Yeah, as we get ready to go.
Comic book
Pre-free
day.
Comic book day.
Well, Matt, it's been great having you. I really appreciate it. Anything else, Mike?
Man, no, it was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Appreciate it, Matt. We'll see you next time. Oh, Mike, that was a great show.
That was a great show. Yeah.
I like Matt. Matt's a great guy.
And it's nothing that we've done. It was a great show.
I know. It's so much better when we don't talk as much.
I love that. I love that. I like those periods where you're looking at me and I'm looking at you. Are you gonna ask a question? Are you gonna ask a question? Are you gonna ask a question?
Well, there is that.
Yeah, but no, it was good. A lot of things I didn't know, and I didn't realize how much, the pandemic has caused, some financial issues for some businesses, and so
Yeah.
it's good to know that you have people, like the Green Power Ranger coming out and helping, which is cool. It's cool that
That is pretty cool.
you have
honestly.
people within the community, within the industry of comic books and fans,
Yeah.
coming out and doing that. So I think it's pretty cool.
Well, and I'm excited that we have a whole new logo that we can start using. now.
It's awesome. I wasn't for
You-
sure.
You sound slightly frightened. I
didn't
don't
have-
understand.
I haven't had a chance to really absorb it. I haven't wrapped my mind around it, but
You
I
haven't
like
wrapped your mind
Yeah,
around it. Well,
mind
here I'll
around
let you wrap your mind around it a little more.
it. Oh my. Let's see here. Hold on. Show that right. Yes, oh yeah.
Oh my. Oh my.
That's what
Oh man, I think we probably need to wrap up the
I think
show.
we do. I think it's time.
Appreciate you guys watching. You guys are the best audience in the world. We love having you on the show. We will definitely be back next week.
That's
same
right.
bat time, same bat channel.
That's right.
We're on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch.
Yes.
And you'll find us something about something somewhere. Join our Facebook page, join our Facebook group. If you join the group, make sure you answer the questions or we won't let you in. Naughty,
right.
naughty.
Naughty.
But anything else we need to mention?
Well, I mean, we'll get back with you on what we're going to do next Wednesday.
Yeah, I have no idea what
have
we're
no
doing next
idea.
week.
Which is
We
usually
probably
the
have
best-
it written down somewhere, but I
probably
forgot
do,
to
but-
look before the show.
that was by accident.
It's very fitting, very
Very
fitting.
fitting, but yes. Oh,
Oh man, yeah, I don't even remember. I'm sure we
I
have it
know.
written down, but
I'm
I
sure
forgot
we
to
do.
look before the
I
show.
think it's all good.
Maybe we should play the ending.
I think we should do it.
This has been the Something About Something podcast with your host, Mr. Mike Schilling.
And my good friend and compadre, Mr. Ricky Poe. Nice. That was fun.
That was
It
good. That was fun. That was
yeah.
fun.
Makes me want to go read comics now.
I know.
I know.
We should read comics.
We should read comics.